More now on the conclusion to the biggest and longest-running criminal case against U.S. troops in the Iraq War. Exactly what happened that November day in Haditha back in 2005 was the subject of a Time magazine investigative report. Joanne has reaction to the verdict from the reporter who broke the story at the roundtable.
As you just heard, Staff Sergeant Frank Wooderich, the final Marine to be charged in the biggest criminal case against U.S. troops, pled guilty to dereliction of duty, a misdemeanor. Journalist Tim McGurk broke the story of the Haditha killings back in 2006 when he was a Time magazine correspondent. He is now the managing editor of the investigative reporting program at UC Berkeley. He joins me via Skype from his home in Santa Cruz. Thank you, Tim, for being here.
Hi.
Now, you wrote this story in 2006, but it was months after the killings actually happened. Why was it not reported originally?
Well, there are a couple of reasons for that. I mean, the first reason is that it happened in a distant part of Iraq, which is really part of the Sunni triangle where there was a lot of fighting going on. And it wasn't safe for journalists or really people who didn't come from that particular town to even go there. So I had to rely on some Iraqi human rights activists who brought me a video. And the video showed, it was raw footage, and it showed sadly, it showed dead bodies, and they were being unzipped from body bags at the morgue in Haditha.
Now,
and, yeah, sorry.
Were you also able to interview some of the family members of those killed as well?
Yes, I did. I interviewed the family members. There was a small girl and her young brother who actually survived the massacre because their mother had thrown her body in front of them when one of the Marines entered the room where they were all hiding and opened fire on them. So we managed to convince her to come down with her relatives to the Time Bureau in Baghdad and talk to us.
What did she tell you?
Well, she explained how they had heard the IED, the roadside bomb, explode. They'd heard a lot of shouting and commotion, and it wasn't the first time that had happened in their neighborhood. So they did what they always did. They had a routine, and that routine is that they would herd all of the women, children, and the old grandfather who was in a wheelchair into the big room in the house. And then this girl's father would go in and start reciting the Quran as a kind of form of protection that they hoped. And this had always worked in the past, except this time the Marines came bursting into the house and opened fire first on her father, who was praying and reciting the Quran. Then they entered the room where the family was huddled, and then opened fire to them too.
Including the man in the wheelchair?
Including the grandfather in the wheelchair, yes.
Now, when you brought all of this information to the military, as you did, I believe even before the story was published, what was the military's reaction?
Well, I mean, at first the military reaction was when I went back and after seeing this video, I did a Google search and I found out what the Marines' version of what had happened at the time. And there was a short little Marine Corps communique that said that there had been this roadside bomb. It killed a Marine, wounded another, and that it also killed a large number of Iraqi civilians. And everything that I saw from this video seemed to, the fact that these women and children were still wearing their pajamas, they were in their night clothes. And Iraq's a very conservative society. They don't wander out in the street. Most of the damage, the explosion, and the bullet marks were inside the house, not on the exterior of the building. So the Marines' their first response is, "You've got to be kidding. You know, you've been duped by Al-Qaeda. This is part of a plot a propagandist plot to discredit the Marines." But the more I probed and the more I got testimony from people in the village, other people from the doctor at the morgue, it gave me a substantial body of evidence, including the eyewitness testimony. And then I gave all of this to the Marines, and I said, "Look, we're not going to publish anything, but we want you we want to hear your side of the story." And the colonel in charge said, "Well, look, based on what you've shown and told me, I think there's enough to warrant a formal investigation. And that investigation went on for about a year and a half.
We know now, as we fast forward, there were, I believe, 8 Marines who were the charges. They had charges against them. Many of them dropped. One of them acquitted. And now, so the last man standing, this is sort of the term that's been used in terms of Frank Wuterich, a plea deal, a misdemeanor charge, maximum sentence is 3 minutes in jail. How do you react? 3 months in jail. How do you react to the sort of the end of this story?
Well, I'm, frankly, a bit. I know that the Staff Sergeant Wuterich has been, suffering for 6 years as this trial has been stretched out interminably. But I think you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the relatives of these 24 unarmed civilian Iraqis who were killed. And they've been following this trial with great interest, I would imagine. And they're seeing that the man who is responsible for the killing of these 24 unarmed civilians is getting away with a 3-month stint in the brig. And I think that they'll be very dismayed about that, too.
Well, thank you so much, Tim McGurk, former Time correspondent who broke the original story in Haditha. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.